as the electric power industry becomes more focused on technology, collaboration between leadership is becoming increasingly important. Alan Ross speaks to Dan Smith of Austin Energy about this need for collaboration, the unique challenges facing Austin Energy, and the near-term implications of machine learning and AI.
I have on me to talk about the COMET conference. I have Dan Smith, who is both on the planning and committee, and also Dan was instrumental in supporting, and I assume, Dan, you still support Austin Energy as a sponsor of the COMET conference. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Good. And so part of this is like having access to the family. And I want to ask Dan some questions about the conference itself. But before we do that, welcome. It's good to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a bit.
Yeah, great to talk to you as well, Alan.
Okay, so when we talk about COMET, obviously you were there at the beginning when Dr. Hebner and Austin Energy and the University of Texas Austin Electromechanical Center got together with Qualitrol to do this. What were your first thoughts about why? Why should the COMET conference be of value to the people that are putting it on and the people that are attending?
Well, I think one thing that intrigued me very initially was the focus on condition-based monitoring, and that's been a strategic area for Austin Energy, and as we've considered and really pushed and driven grid modernization, one of our four pillars of that is asset management, of which a real important subset is condition-based monitoring, and so those things really that stuck out to me. I recognized that there really, as far as I knew, there wasn't any one conference or summit that really focused on that as a specific objective.
Yeah, condition-based monitoring. I mean, it's amazing. So I've become credentialed in the whole reliability world, and that thing has blown up because it's on every major asset. If they can figure out somehow to monitor it, that's what they're trying to do. So the idea that they're doing it in electrical systems and or transformers and or cables and or whatever they're doing has been a big one. So we've had, what now, 4 years? Are we about to go into the fourth year of that? You know?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, well, like you stated, Austin Energy's been a part of COMET since its inception in 2014. So we are walking into year number 4. And I've had both the privilege to speak and even be one of the keynotes of that. And as a result of it, it's been just a great experience for myself. But it's been, I think, very beneficial to Austin Energy.
Yeah, I know at one time, the very first one I went to, which is I think the second conference, you were a keynoter, and you also had, it was either 7 or 12 people, it might have been San Diego, that had more, but there were a lot of people there. From the folks that attended, I'm going to ask about your experience, but from the folks that attended, did you get feedback from them? And by role, what did they say the takeaway was?
Well, one of the things I appreciated was just the interactive nature of the conference, and so the conference is really well formatted to not only really deliver some great content, but it really facilitates a lot of good discussions in breaks and lunch and then even some of the evening type related functions, and so my team really valued a lot from one, being stimulated by the content, but then really was the follow-up conversations with other utilities and professionals, both in industry and academia, and even some thought leaders that are really digging into this. And so one thing that I remember, probably the most significant thing was, this is kind of a commercial-free opportunity to really talk in detail of what's working and what's not. What are utilities and industry doing that are really making a difference in regard to better managing their assets? And because we're like-minded and we have some very focused objectives and goals that really align, this that opportunity to really talk about it in that detail is and has been unique, and that's been kind of a repeat theme as my folks have gone back year after year.
That's good. I was talking to somebody recently, and I was talking about Comet Conference, but I mentioned, I think this last year when we did the live feed, we were trying to do the live feed from your folks down in Puerto Rico that were down there right after the hurricane. Yeah. I know we had some technical difficulty, but that was, to me, a superb highlight when somebody's talking live to people who are actually doing the work. But I was telling somebody about that, and you're going to love this. And I said, so I was talking about you, and I was talking about Austin Energy, and he said, yeah, but that's like Austin Energy. I mean, they're like the premier. And I said, oh, so when you say that, you mean they're somebody that you'd like to follow. They're a thought leader. They're a practice leader. So here's another, and this was a pretty well-respected Muni, a fairly large one too, that was saying, oh, but that's Austin Energy. They're the best. I mean, we can't expect to do that. Here's the other thing. When I shared about the Puerto Rico experience, they were fascinated about, well, what has that got to do with condition-based monitoring? And if you remember when we set that up, we talked about it, the planning is what was on everybody's mind right then. It was these hurricanes and resiliency. So sometimes we think it's about one thing, condition-based monitoring. Then we say, no, this is what's on people's minds right now. Let's bring that topic into it. I think we did it pretty well last conference about, nailing the two together. Your experiences, sorry.
Pardon me, Alan. No, 100%. I think that there's a total alignment with it. It's not only a hot current topic, especially based on the hurricanes from last year, but it quite honestly it's a core. It's been in our core DNA for quite some time, and so. There's a direct correlation with managing those assets and working with Puerto Rico in addressing obviously the after effect, but the recognition that there is a complete direct correlation and building a system that is more reliable and resilient, and recognizing there's a difference between the two, though they clearly overlap, and they match and they marry very much into the type of topics that Comet addresses each year.
Yeah, I've heard you speak now 3, maybe 4 times. I heard you at Omicron. You spoke for us at the Power Summit last year, and I've heard you once or twice at the Comet Conference. And they're never the same. So first of all, you're a really good speaker because they're never the same. I love your energy and enthusiasm. There's some people who think, oh, okay, they're going to get up there and they talk and it's very dry, but it's never very dry with Dan Smith. But one of the things that really struck me, I think it was at Omicron and again at the Reliability Summit, which I didn't really fully understand for the first Comet, but when you talk about integrating the uniqueness of Austin Energy when you're talking about so much green energy and you're talking about the demands that the city council places for a very customer-centric. So you've not only got all the technical issues about there, but you got a significantly different demand, microgrids, and how you're going to use this advanced technology. Without going into your keynote, because that's going to take about an hour, and I know I want people to come to Comet and hear it if they either sitting down with you at a table or I know we're putting the speaker group together right now for that. But talk a little bit about the uniqueness of Austin Energy as it relates to what you're trying to do.
Well, that's a great question. And by the way, I can't help but go back with the comment about us being real leaders in the area, and I appreciate that, but I also have to I think humbly admit that we as utilities and as industry professionals really learn from each other, and I've recognized that we have some areas that we're really doing well in, but we found there are other utilities and there are other utility professionals in the industry that have got other strengths that we're really valuing, and so I do think that quite honestly, to get where we all want to go, it's going to involve conferences like Comet, where we can collaboratively work on these things and share notes and sort of, I guess what I'm ultimately saying is the same admiration that you might have heard from another Muni. I share that admiration for some of these other companies as well. But back to your question, I think that we are in a unique place. We're the 8th largest municipally owned utility in the country. We do have a very active stakeholder environment, and they have some objectives that I think are very good objectives that aren't always the first thing that comes out of a utility, whether that's an IOU or a publicly owned utility. And I think as a result of that, it very customer focused and customer driven and community focused that allows us to deal some of the issues here. What I found with that is that as we're really driving for very, very hard toward environmentally focused issues and affordability, those aren't something that are exclusive from really what we as a utility industry need to address. They are, I would say, pushed hard by our local governing bodies. However, we've created a type of transparency that allows us to really work those issues while still maintaining safety and reliability and resiliency, and knowing those things really aren't mutually exclusive. And in fact, there's ways that as you drive toward a greater degree of distributive energy resources, which we've been strong proponents of really incentivizing that, especially with rooftop solar and things like electric vehicles, demand response, energy efficiency. But all of those things now are part of, and for many utilities are not only a reality, but they're a necessary part of really driving a different future electrification economy. And so I guess long story short, and I could probably talk a long time on this particular subject, but we've really been able to I think have a type of dialogue with our stakeholders that is showing a lot of the value that comes from better managing our assets. And admittedly, a lot of that focuses on the distribution system. We've been for years and years doing quite a bit of modernization and automation in the transmission and substation system, but that has migrated into the distribution system. But that core function and core need becomes this platform, which I think is very important for not just a muni, but for really all utilities to move toward being this type of platform that's a flexible, interoperable, it's a transactional type of platform that really does facilitate the future electricity economy.
You just gave me a new acronym here. So when you said flexible, interactable, and what was the T in that? You gave me another one. But anyway, it was the fit of smart cities. That's going to be a new mantra.
That's very, yeah. Right.
Yeah. I want to ask one more question about Comet. This year, we're kind of we're not 100% on all of the final content and the call for papers. In fact, that'll be going out soon. But we have determined that one of the major areas we want to focus on as it relates to condition monitoring. And we're really looking at this. We want to take condition-based monitoring. We want to include a section or segment on smart cities, which you've explained and talked about how Austin Energy is doing that very well. But we really want to advance this into what is artificial intelligence, the whole AI, the intelligent Internet of Things, machine learning. We're trying to bring in more of that because the condition-based monitoring part drives a tremendous amount of data. And then that data is then what do we do with it? And, that's kind of our focus on there. Just thoughts on how valuable you think that might be to somebody deciding on whether they should come to Common or not. And where are you on that? Where is Austin Energy on that?
That's a great question. I do think that what is happening in our field and our industry these days are we're becoming more technology-based companies, and as a result of that, things related to the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence are a very central part of what's happening a lot behind the scenes. And so I for what I see, and I guess putting some near-term focus on it, is the level of machine learning that has been going on for some time have been things like the use of home appliance type devices, Nest thermostats, for example, and we want to, I think, speak to how we're allowing customers flexibility and choice to do devices that are going to help them to better utilize energy for in an optimal way, but also in the way they want to use it and in the way they want to manage it, and it can be affordability, but it also will have some comfort and convenience factors related to that. I think when it gets to the operational side, some of the things that we see moving forward are I think the intelligence that's going to drive some of the control algorithms are going to have some aspect of learning. So, for example, outage management systems and fault location are going to be things that higher degree of accuracy and some of the predictive engines that are behind that. And so I do believe utilities, we tend to be conservative in the sense that we're not going to get too far out over our skis. We're going to look at things that we believe are have some reasonableness and maturity. However, we are also knowing that we're going to have to change and transform. And so with that, we're going to look at systems that we believe will allow customer choice, flexibility, and convenience, but at the same time, really operate and increase operational efficiencies. So some of that is, for example, some of the things, the platforms we're doing to better manage the distribution system will take in weather input, and there'll be a type of machine learning that taking different models in from the weather will result in certain impact on our distribution system. And with that, a learning occurs that says, okay, this type of weather pattern might look like this from a damage assessment perspective. And then as that algorithm is further matured, you have a better ability to plan restoration efforts, how you might stage equipment and materials and people. There's already a tremendous effort that's going on in regard to predicting solar and wind, and so for us, it's going to have a lot more to do with solar here locally in Austin, but the wind inputs into the generation in West Texas are significant, and so there's a lot of machine learning that's being done on, I would call it the micro and macro level, that's better predicting the ability for the grid to be operated reliably, but also efficiently and economically. So those are some of the things going on. We're utilizing UAVs, drones to better patrol and inspect our assets. Those type of things are also building in some levels of learning of what to look for and how to identify things. And in really a whole different area that that will tie back into a smart city as electric vehicles continue to grow, to occur, but also around the corner are autonomous vehicles, and our cities is working in both those areas pretty heavily, and we're starting to see the drive and the interest toward fleet electrification, and as a result of that, it's certainly a big IoT element, but it's also going to get into some levels of intelligence into how these autonomous vehicles will end up talking to each other and working and dealing with how to navigate our streets safely.
We've talked about the past conferences. You just laid out the absolute perfect scenario of what I would think would be the value of somebody coming to this year's conference. Okay, now since you and I are on the planning of who gets to speak and do what here, I get to then say, Dan, you or somebody from your organization or somebody's has got to take what you just said, and we've got to blow that up, because I got to tell you, I think it is a game changer. I think looking into the future and seeing some of the things that are could or are about to happen, when somebody leaves this conference, I want them to walk away and say, I think I've seen the future, and we, not one, not me, not us, but we are moving there together. That's one of the things I just want to end with real quick, and I know that you will concur with me. It is the collaborative nature of COMET, of practitioner to practitioner, idea to idea. It is not a bunch of technical papers thrown out at people. We have these wonderful panels that we tried to make the panel work for an hour and a half, and I was worried that none of the panels would have enough content to fill an hour and a half. There wasn't one single panel that ever didn't want to keep going, and we had to say, folks, we got to stop because we got a conference to put on. But thank you so much. I know you're as excited about COMET as I am, and thank you for you and Austin Energy and all that you're putting into this. So I look forward to seeing you. I'll see you before we get there, but I will see you at the upcoming COMET conference in 2008 in 19. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you.